Okay, hi everybody. So I was asked to talk a little bit about obviously my background, how I'm helping with advocacy for fibromyalgia, and also, as already been said by Melissa, is how creativity has helped a lot in the last 4 years or so, since it really knocked me for six. So a little bit about my personal background, just from a fibro point of view. In 2018, I was diagnosed with central sensitivity syndrome. That was by a neurologist at Stoke Mandeville Hospital, which some of you might know, which is where the Paralympics was born. So a very good hospital to be under the care of. In September 2019, something literally stopped me working from a mental point of view and a physical point of view. So I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia by the same neurologist, who then had it confirmed by a pain consultant, and that was on Christmas Eve 2019. In April 2020, after trying to think about how I could get back to work, unfortunately I couldn't, and had to leave a role in logistics management, which, as you can imagine, is very involved and a very stressful environment to be in, especially when it's delivery to the healthcare sector. Following that, just after the pandemic had hit and we were in lockdown, I had a video conference call with the pain clinic, and they ran through everything, and they quickly discharged me because I was already undertaking the self-management that they could offer. So that was the things like doing daily yoga. I was already doing meditation. Diet was good. I wasn't showing any other symptoms that they were worried about. So they discharged me and said, if you need us, come back. But I'll talk a bit about how difficult that is later. So really you're sort of thinking, is that it? And really it's up to me now to try and work out how I can function this way, or if possible, improve it. Because of the pandemic and quickly being discharged from the pain clinic, that meant I had no contacts, and so there was no further investigation of symptoms. So that kind of has led me down the route of advocacy and trying to speak up for people with fibromyalgia, and to let those who haven't got it know what it's about. I think one of the most frustrating things is the tagline, there's no known cure. So when somebody is diagnosed with it, and I've spoken to a few people recently locally that haven't been diagnosed long, and that is the biggest thing for them to get their head round. Although that's the case, there is a lot of research that's ongoing, and it provides hope. But as long as medical professionals start to open up to that new potential with these alternatives, and we have to be honest, there needs to be some removal of financial limitations. For example, there's things that I've read about that have been highlighted in the Fibro Connect group. I've read about and researched a bit further. And you kind of think, would that help? Could that be the answer to what this is? So I need to have those conversations. And that's things like hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Could that help with the brain fog? Intracranial hypertension, if that's there, would that help with my vision and the challenges I have with that? And as we've heard Dr. Michael Lenz say, and really does push on this a lot in his work, the undiagnosed ADHD and autism, if that's potentially there. One of the things that I've advocated, and I've written about quite a lot on my blog, is the importance to reflect, self-educate and self-advocate, so that we can be listened to and heard by medical professionals, and so that we can do our own self-improvement. It also helps us learn from others. And I think it's that reflection and self-education that has helped me understand that actually 2018, 2019 was kind of a point in life with fibro, and I've probably had it a lot longer than that. One of the key challenges we all have across the world, it's no different anywhere, I don't think, with the exception of individuals like Michael, there's few medical professionals who understand or have in-depth knowledge of fibromyalgia related conditions. And under that, I just want to highlight also dentists, because when you go to the dentist, even though you're doing all the care and things you should be doing to look after your dental hygiene, they're still having a go at you. And you mention fibro and they're completely clueless. So in a way, you feel like you're on your own. The UK NHS waiting list times are at the moment large, and I don't think it's just the UK that has this problem. Extremely long waiting list to see specialist consultants. I currently have 3 referrals to speak to consultants to investigate things that I think might help, or at least should be investigated and ruled out. And I'm looking at a year plus, or for potential ADHD, that's 2 years plus. So what's my contribution to advocacy? One of the things that I am doing is a public contributor for the Consortium to research into individual, not easy to say, interpersonal and social influences in pain, otherwise known as CRISP. And it's part of a UK-funded program to research life with chronic pain. It's very interesting working with researchers, doctors and other researchers who are out there in the field working on building research, and while they're out there delivering it and coming back with questions and feedback on what they're learning. And we're learning a lot from each other about how piecing together this research works. I'm also in contact with Carly Hook, who might be online watching this. She currently started her PhD research into fibromyalgia, so she's focusing on that specifically. And we spoke the other day about where she is at the moment. And her biggest challenge, she was mentioning, is how wide the spectrum of fibromyalgia is, and trying to hone it down enough for her thesis to have absolute focus on a specific area. And she's looking into the social aspects of fibromyalgia, as is the work that I'm doing, the work group that I'm in for the CRISP research. I will respond to any online questionnaires about living with fibro or chronic illness. I think it's the least we can do if they come up, if they're just a quick 5-10 minutes. Although I struggle with screens, I try and work through it and make sure that these people are getting that feedback. There is a lot of research going on out there into individual areas. Maybe one day that will all come together and we'll have something more concrete. As some of you know, I write a blog, Fibro and Photos, which brings together my love of photography and also a life with fibromyalgia, and active in the Fibro Connect group with Lee, Melissa and the others, Carrie and everybody else. And again, sharing my photography there, which has then pushed me on to share. I've also started a local group for Leighton Buzzard. There was nothing I could find locally, lots of trawling online to try and find groups, people where you can meet face to face. There wasn't anything, so I decided to start my own. And we've met twice now for coffee. And it's going really well. Everyone's enjoying the chance that we can meet up and just, bounce around what it's like living with fibro. There's some of us that are a bit longer in having been diagnosed with it and learning to live with it, and some where it's very early days. And of course, there's the Fibro Blogger directory where I share my blogs into that on a weekly basis. Why should we be doing advocacy? I think it's the best moral support there is at the moment from the fibro community. When people are diagnosed, they need to know that they're not alone, that they're not, in my words, crazy, and that, this is real. And that's one of the common phrases that we hear and see from people, that other people don't believe it's real. For the wider population, I think we need to advocate for people to understand that their friends, relatives, this is a real situation. But the challenge is not to be viewed as complaining or looking for sympathy or attention, but it's just about being understood. We are learning to live with something that we don't fully understand. We just need you to understand that we have that challenge, and then therefore, the relationship can develop from there. I've seen a lot of claims of articles of people curing themselves of fibromyalgia. I read them because I want to know what that's about. And what I found is that actually it's not so much a cure as they have learnt and adapted their life to learn to live with the limitations of fibro, quite often a complete change of career and a lot of other changes in their life. So they put the cured in there to try and attract us into reading, but really we can learn from those as much as anything else. And obviously it's fair to say that outcomes of self-management, the techniques that are out there, will have different levels of success for each individual, but it still means that we need to try them and see how that improves our lives. As we're seeing, cases of chronic pain continue to rise. The reasons for that we don't fully understand or know. I think there's been a massive increase in the UK in cases of chronic pain. And long COVID in recent years has been a big societal shock. We know that viruses can kick off things like fibromyalgia if you've got a sensitive nervous system. And hopefully, as we'll wait and see, that research into long COVID will hopefully feed into areas of fibromyalgia. We also need to think about, and this popped in my head the other day as I was preparing my slides, what about awareness and skills for the next generation? The generation where, everything's great, but having a better awareness of self. If I'd understood that I was that sensitive child, which I was, I know that growing up, I was labelled the shy child, I kept myself to myself, introverted. But if I had that awareness of self and maybe taken different paths in certain areas and been better in knowing myself. Maybe not have avoided fibro, but maybe been able to better manage the symptoms. Proactive self-management as prevention for those who may be susceptible to developing fibro, I think, is a key as much as helping those who have it. And of course, there's people out there who say, well, that will never happen to me. Let's hope it doesn't. I've had some very, very kind comments from within the fibro community about my photography, and advocating creativity for life with fibro is one of the things that I was asked to talk about today. And it's one of the things that's really helped me since I was knocked sideways and had to stop working. I'm very lucky in that I'm surrounded by local woodlands. It's only a short 10-15 minute walk to get to the local woodlands and to take in some nature therapy. And for me, photography combines several elements to help self-manage my fibro symptoms. It goes without saying, it's exercise. I'm also carrying weight because my camera bag isn't that light, even though I try and strip out what I don't need. It's mindfulness. You're focusing on your surroundings, where the potential shots are. You're taking in not just the wider details, the paths where the light comes in, but also looking at the smaller details. As some of you will have seen, I focus on the fallen leaves, the butterflies in the summer, that sort of thing. It's a meditation, a walking meditation, a photography meditation with that mindfulness, and a nice distraction that although you can feel the fibro pain, I'm in a location where I'm not bothered by it. I get the occasional pet therapy. Unfortunately, our dog passed away in 2012. She'd be getting a lot of exercise if she was still around now, a lot more than she used to, bless her. But obviously there are a lot of dog walkers walking through the woods. Sometimes I get some candid shots of them. But very often I get the chance to pet the dogs as they come up and say hi. I was crouched down the other day and taking a shot on a path low down, and a Labrador's head just appeared and rested on my shoulder, looking over as if to say, what are you doing? There's obviously the social interaction with other walkers, as well as some alone time, and there's that natural curiosity. So it covers a wide range of what we're advised are some of the elements of learning to cope with fibromyalgia. And occasionally, as you can see, I'll take my tripod and I'll do a shot that includes myself trying to work on some concepts, some ideas that might involve people in pictures in later photography projects. For me, images are easier than reading because the way that fibromyalgia and the effects with the brain fog and the eyesight, I have read some books, takes a long time. I keep reading and rereading the same sentence, as well as getting headaches. Images for me, apart from the use of screens, which is very uncomfortable, are easier. There's nothing to try and comprehend. It's just look at an image, I know instantly what that image what I want it to say. I keep processing to a minimum, getting as close as I can to the result I want in camera. Sometimes it's pretty much near out of camera, the shot that I show. Other times, as you'll see with some of my woodland shots, there's a bit more processing. But to be able to cope with that, I process a couple of images at a time. So that brings in the pacing element. It takes a while setting up my stuff as I have no dedicated station. But as soon as the computer's open, I want to close it. So I just make sure that I do a couple of images, have a play around. What's that shot? What's that shoot going to look and feel like when I'm done with it? And then I'll close it and I'll go back to it at a later date and do a couple more images. I'm familiar with creating what I would now call my style for images, for certain images, with a high contrast, bringing the light out. So I've got a routine, which means that when I go into processing, I can make things as quick as possible. So what I do try and do is work within my pain limits, and I've put there mostly, because as you can see with his happy little bluebell waving his arms at us early in the season, around April, May time, in the local woods, getting down that low with very sensitive spine and neck is extremely painful, but the results pay off. When you've got these sort of images to share. The portal for my images was coined by Elaine Merrifield. We spoke a little while ago on a video call and had a chat with her interest in creativity with the work that she does. So it's kind of stuck, and I use that now for some of these images. And the image that you can see there is one of my absolute favourites that I've captured of the foggy local woodlands back in January 2021 with a very faint sight of a couple of people in the distance on that path. It's, for me, there's this mindful distraction of exploring the local woodlands. Now that I've created this style, it's looking for different light and shapes, leading lines, and obviously the weather, which helps a lot with creating some mood in the images. so that I can go back and create these images in the software. And there's also curiosity of experimenting to see if I see an image. I now see, which is sometimes I can't switch it off. I now see where I am in the environment as photography. So, that would make a great image. So it's this curiosity of experimenting to see if I can create what I see in my mind's eye, and also images that intrigue others. And from the feedback that I've been getting and what's been said today, I think that I'm achieving that objective. We did have some snow last December for a few days. So I made sure I got to local woodlands. Very, very cold. I had to warm up for a long time when I got home, but very much worth it. And I want to, with these images, encourage the viewer to ask things like, where does that go? What's down that path? I get that on Instagram a lot. People saying, I just want to go there and find out where that path leads. Walk under this bridge that's been created by the snow weighing down that branch. And I'd like to use a phrase that was on a podcast that I listen to weekly, the Photo Walk podcast, a couple of weeks ago. And the phrase was, we're not photographers, we're therapists. It's not just therapy for the photographer in going out, capturing these and creating images and in using our creativity and embracing our creativity. But it's also therapeutic for people who look at them. And, this is why people stand and stare at an image for a while in an exhibition. Sometimes, especially with lack of travel being a challenge for new locations, you can get to a point where you feel a little bit uninspired. So I like to change how I see or capture the surroundings. And this is a shot of the 4 lenses that I have for my camera, right from a 50mm prime lens, for those of you who know your photography, through to a standard kit lens, a zoom lens, and then we've got the fisheye lens, which I recently used for some shots in a cathedral in Norwich. And quite a few people, including myself, if I look at those images now, it makes you feel dizzy. But it was worth it. So I'll use a different lens, or I'll only take one with me. So limit myself. Sometimes I won't take any images, but I'm still out for the walk, getting all those other benefits. Sometimes I'll take a different route if it's a regular location. So I might do it another way round. I might see a path that I haven't taken before through the woodlands, or walk a bit further into a different area. If I have the car, then I will sort of get up early and go on a early woodland walk in a slightly different location, not too far away, but slightly out of walking distance. We obviously have the change of seasons, and you'll see my photography develop as the seasons change. Local events, I'm always keen to get to those, especially if there's vehicles involved, classic vehicles, that sort of thing, just as a different area of interest, and to make sure that, because I just love photography as a whole. The woodlands, etc., has taken off because that's easy for me to do. It would be the same if I lived in London. I would be doing a lot of urban photography, and that would be my thing. But if local events come up, that gives me a chance to photograph other things. Through those events, I'm looking for objects of personal interest. If we take a trip, you'll have seen recently that I've posted a couple of posts at least on the challenges of a trip to London. But the camera is always around my neck. I'm taking pictures and posting those as part of the experience. Again, it's distraction from the challenge of doing 12,000 plus steps around the capital. And sometimes you need to focus on the smaller details, like the leaf that I showed you on the first slide for the photography segment. So you get to local events, you never know what you're going to find. And this image got a big reaction online when I posted it. Obviously, there's a lot of post-processing there to make that car shine and look as it does in the sort of style that I've gone for, the high contrast style. But why wouldn't you photograph this? The chap that owns it, it's not the chap you can see standing there. But it's just a bonus that he was stood there with his braces and his summer hat on, which completed the image. But this car is immaculate. It's been completely refurbished, and so it would have been a shame not to capture it. And this is the image that I visualized in my mind's eye when I was crouched down, taking a shot of it. And then there is London. I've mentioned that we're not far away. Unfortunately, I haven't traveled into London as much as I would like. When I do go in, I want to make the most of it. At the minute, it's very challenging to arrange trips in because we have so many rail strikes going on, with the drivers demanding more pay and better conditions. But when I do go there, I try and make the most of it. This is actually one of my absolute favourite shots that I've captured in London, and I think it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I was stood on Millennium Bridge facing St Paul's Cathedral. Actually, I was shooting the cityscape from the bridge with the river down the centre of my shot. You've got things like the Shard and the city in the distance. Tower Bridge was down in the distance. And a friend of mine all I heard him shout was my name. We were the only ones on the bridge. And then I turned and saw these two people walking along the bridge with 1940s style dress and bicycles. They may probably going to one of the exhibitions or tourist attractions in the capital. But you can see, I think, why this is one of my favourite shots. And we speak a lot online in the groups about sharing gratitude, what you're grateful for. You've got to be grateful when moments like this pop up and all you've got in the frame are the two individuals you wanted to capture, rather than a lot of the members of the public, which would have happened later on. I think this was something like around 8:30 in the morning. And obviously, I can't share any of the images, keeping it private, but documenting personal memories has been a big thing for me. My photography has meant that I've got some lovely shots of the family. My son, as he's been growing up, I've documented his football from age 6, 7, all the way through to 16, photographing for his teams when they were playing. And he's got over 300 images in an album somewhere for him to look through and remember his experiences, as much for us to see how he's grown up. And recently got some lovely shots of him with his granddad. My dad is not a big man. He was 5'4" before health conditions made him shrink a little bit. My son is over 6 foot. So with those in the distance, a lovely candid shot of my dad walking with his grandson. And sort of how the next generation is there. So from a creativity point of view, being able to capture images and create some nice memories that I'm able to share with the families. I thought I'd also talk a little bit about music as creativity for life with fibro. Any of you that have heard my interview with Dr. Michael Lenz on his Conquering Your Fibromyalgia podcast a little while ago will know that Michael broke down the interview into my story, photography, and then we spoke about music at the end of it. And again, it's one of those things which I realized very early on with fibromyalgia, that creativity is my natural thing. It's always been there in the background as hobbies. Still is. They still are both hobbies. I'm far from making a living out of either of them, but they come naturally. And as I've had more time to just focus on them, more it's flowing out of me more and more. And that's something I'm, again, very grateful for. So I've always had a fascination of music. I think it was about 6 or 7 when I first heard Thin Lizzy, that dual guitar sound on the radio. And from then on, I was hearing music, etc. And apparently, when the neurologist was asking me questions about central sensitivity, one of the questions he asked was, do you always hear music in your head? When you listen to music, do you hear it, the embellishments that aren't there, that if you were going to sort of rearrange that music, you'd be putting orchestras here or taking that out and putting something else in? And the answer is yes. I always have what I think are originals in my head, or I'm hearing other tunes constantly in my head. Through meditation over years, I've learned that I can switch that off. But now that I'm living with fibro, unable to work, this keeps my brain active and creative, as well as the photography. I did play the recorder. Like many in school, that was the instrument of, let's give everyone a go at the recorder. Then when I went to secondary school, I played the flute in the school concerts and orchestra. I used to be able to sight read, not now. And I think with the fibro and my vision problems, trying to read note to note would really be a big challenge. So I picked up the guitar. That is what I wanted to play. My school music teacher couldn't play guitar. It's one of the rare instruments he couldn't play. So I picked it up myself, and I'm mostly self-taught. I have had a few lessons, but not many. I've had a choice of acoustic or electric. That allows me to find the voice and relate to the mood that I'm in. And also it's about vibration. Picking up the acoustic is my go-to choice. Firstly, it's easy. I just need to grab it out of the case, tune it and play. But also when you've got that body next to you, that hollow body, there's a vibration of it. The guitar I have, to me, is a lovely guitar to play. It's natural. It just comes natural picking up that guitar and playing, compared to some others where I might pick them up and struggle for a little while. Picking that guitar up is natural, lovely vibration, and you just get into the flow of it. Then sometimes I'll pick up the electric because I want to try something else. I want to challenge my brain to be a bit more creative. Sometimes I'll drop the tuning down, because I do like a lot of heavy rock bands that will play with a drop D tuning, that sort of thing, like Nickelback. They'll drop the bottom string down to get that heavier feel. Sometimes I give myself a headache and then I have to pick up the acoustic and feel better. But I'm trying to push myself with that creativity. I play and write the music I like. It's got to feel good to me. There's no point trying to play stuff that doesn't resonate with me. And sometimes, although I've heard an original version for a number of years, you'll hear a cover version and that triggers something in my brain that says, actually, I could work with that idea. Even though I like the original, that's now triggered me to try and want to do that. And just as a little aside, the electric guitar that you can see there, I actually hand built it in 2003. So again, creativity. It's a lovely guitar to play. Yeah, I would say that. But I went on a build your own course with a master guitar builder for 5 days and came out with that. One of the challenges of doing this with Fibro is the ability to coordinate hands and fingers varies. I'm sure that's the case with many, that sometimes it takes a while for me to pick up the guitar and start feeling like my fingers are coordinating with the strings and that sort of thing. And my picking fingers are doing the same. Singing, I've always loved singing. I'm thankful and grateful that I have a voice where I can sing, but there is also huge benefits. Somebody was talking in our local Fibro group when we met the other week about stimulating the vagus nerve. And I said, well, the simplest thing to do is sing. It's about the vibration. And I have to say that when I get in the flow, so after 20, 30 minutes of playing and singing the right songs that really just, give me that feeling, I've found my voice. It's very hard to explain, but that vibration, not just the instrument, but of my voice, really lifts me. And that's the only way at the moment with the brain fog that I can explain that. Also, it's about finding your voice. My voice ability varies. And I know that Carrie has mentioned this in the past, with her singing career. Your voice ability varies sometimes to the point where you can't carry on. But for me, as an amateur and somebody who's just doing it for me, I'm changing key constantly so that I can carry on doing that. So I might have been singing a song in a certain key for weeks. All of a sudden, I've got to pick up the capo, put it on the neck of the guitar, change the key, and I find that I can do that song. And that's, yes, it affects my confidence to perform in public. I haven't done an open mic for a long, long time, and I would not go out and do that at the moment. Hence the videos that I put on YouTube. Only the best ones go up there, or the better ones go up there, just to give people a feel of what I've been doing. But also in terms of it's just me in the room, it builds my confidence that I can still do that, and it's easy. Just change the key. There's obviously breathing and relaxation involved. And the crazy thing is, and I guess we will all say this, I can remember lyrics from 40 years ago in the 80s, when music really started being a big part of my life. But you asked me what I said a few minutes ago, then no, or what I said just now, I can't remember. So music has that magical thing, and we know that from the research that's being done into Alzheimer's and things like that. And it's nice that my cognitive function, in terms of bringing the hands, the head, the voice, everything together, it just works. It just clicks, which says to me, this is what you're meant to be doing, or one of the things you're meant to be doing. And I've put in brackets for a short while, because as we all know, even when you love doing something, fatigue can come in and just knock you out. I do compose my own songs. And this comes as a surprise to me as much as anything. But if I sit with a guitar or I'm just doing other things, lyrics, melodies, chord structures just pop in my head. It's something which I can't turn off. It's something which I enjoy now. It keeps my brain active, as I said earlier. I look for chord structures and melodies that evoke feeling in me and then hopefully feeling in other people. Some people looking for things that will always make them happy, but I've tried writing sort of just a straightforward pop song in a major key. That's not me. It doesn't work for me. So I write what works for me. It is very therapeutic to get lyrics down about personal experience. Some of you will have heard Say Goodbye about being hit with fibro. And some of you might have seen my other, what I would call my less well-constructed, but, to the point fibro blues. Writing your own songs is a huge sense of achievement. And that gives you that kick of dopamine, makes you feel good about yourself. And I always wondered, if I wrote songs, how would I know when they were finished? My mind and how it's working now is just a case of I've written a song, I sing it through, and I know it's finished. It just feels like a song. And sometimes I feel like songs that I've been singing for years when I've only just written them. So in advocating creativity, whether it's photography, music, painting, crochet, whatever it is that you do or find, comes natural to you, I encourage you to go out there and do some of it. We know that in the fibro community, there are many who are naturally creative. Not everyone will understand your need to be creative, but That's their issue, not yours. Don't let this deter you if it helps you manage your symptoms and feel better within yourself. That's why I do what I do. I've had to build myself up after being knocked out mentally and physically from being able to work. So I've gone slowly and been building that up. Yeah, it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back sometimes. But at the end of the day, you've got to be creative for you. And when you are creative, that really does help with the symptoms. And that's my presentation for today. I hope that's been enjoyable for you. And there's a QR code there to my website, to my blog, if you want to read up more about my experience and my photography. And thank you very much.